Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, What to Expect in our newest version, dotCMS 5.2. I'm Alexandra Barcelona, Director of Marketing at dotCMS, and I'll be today's moderator. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to everyone who registered after the webinar. We'll also be hosting a Q&A session at the end, so if you have any questions, please submit them in the panel on your screen.
Okay, so what's the program for today? So we'll start with a short introduction, paint a little bit of context, and then we'll dive into the 5.2 release and what we're going to bring to the table for marketers, as well as new tools for development teams. And finally, we'll take us into the future and share with us what he and his team are going to deliver after 5.2. A little recap for those who are not familiar with our product vision. We deliver on our product vision with 4 overarching themes, right? So hybrid, cloud and continuity, no code, and intelligence. And I'm not going to go into more detail. If you want to check out our product vision, just reach out to me and I'll get you a copy. Speaking of our product vision, what we want to deliver is the content foundation as a service that allows enterprises to build, orchestrate, and deploy what we call connected, trusted, and continuous customer experiences, right? So that's what we want to bring. Again, more detail around this in our product vision document. Now let's see what we've delivered so far since we released the 5 series last year. There's obviously a lot of stuff that we've delivered in 5.0 and 5.1 for marketing teams. So really making digital marketing as agile as possible, right? And again, really aiming for the highest level of no code. So for development teams, we did the same thing, right? Really brought a lot of tools that allows them to build blistering fast, secure and hybrid applications that supports the business, right? And we're obviously continuing to bring more tools for the development teams. Now, going back to 5.2, what do we want to bring for marketing teams, right? So first, we've been focusing on enhancing our existing personalization and content targeting tool, right? So really took it to the next level that allows marketing teams to create hyper-personalized digital experiences, right? And obviously all no code. We did the same thing with the Form Builder. It's a tool that's been around for a while, but we really took it to the next level, made it more no code, and then combined with the personalization capabilities, really allowing for more personalized experiences. We've also been extending our DEM capabilities, right? We're not a DEM, we don't pretend to be one, but we have some fundamental capabilities that our customers like, and we've extended a couple of those. And then lastly, we've made our workflow management engine a little bit more robust to, create more consistency in the content governance process. Will, can you show us how that looks like?
We're real excited about the improvements we've made to the process of personalization in dotCMS 5.2. What dotCMS 5.2 allows you to do now with personalization is actually personalize content for different visitors at a content block level or the container level in dotCMS. And so what we're looking at here is this is a new starter site that's going to be shipping with dotCMS 5.2. It might come after dotCMS 5.2, but we'll be shipping here shortly. But the starter site's a fresh take on a modern website. It's a resort site that has different resorts in different areas of the world, also has a nice travel blog. It also has a shop with a fictitious e-commerce shop. So it's really going to be a nice platform to display all the different capabilities and flexibility of dotCMS. Well, let me show you a little bit how personalization in dotCMS 5.2 works. If I go to the back end of dotCMS 5.2, and you can see here I can browse our new starter site, and let's say I wanted to begin by personalizing the home page. You can see here this bar has been updated a little bit cleaner, and you can see here I'm previewing it as a visitor on different devices. I can see what it's going to look like on a phone. But if I wanted to personalize this page based upon some characteristic of the visitor, the first thing I do is create that new visitor persona, right? And so in this case, maybe I want to personalize it for not so much a lover of winter sports, but a sun lover. And I can click, and it's going to pop open the Add Persona window, and I can create a new persona right from this screen. And so now you can see here that I'm looking at this page as this particular sun lover here. I can take this page, I can say, I want to edit this now as the sun lover, right? And you can see here now, I have two personas, and this page has been personalized as a sun lover. And that means the changes that I'm going to make to this page are only available to people who have been personified as sun lovers. So instead of this banner, maybe I'm going to add a new banner here. And I'm going to say, okay, we want a new banner, and I'm going to create a banner. Let's call this Come to the Sun, and have different layouts. Let's select that layout, caption, resort awaits. Learn more. And here I can choose a new banner image. Fiji, it's automatically going to be uploaded. And this is going to be sun lover, Fiji, beach, however you want to categorize and tag that. And the link's going to go to destinations Fiji. So I can save and publish that piece of content. And coming back to our homepage, you can see here, I can preview the homepage as a sun lover. I can preview it as what the default visitor is going to see. So now that I've personalized the page for a sun lover, let's say I want to create a rule that's going to automatically drop a visitor into the sun lover bucket when they come and visit the page. Now these rules can have a whole ton of conditions that can be read based upon the visitor's context, and based upon them can perform actions on the visitor object themselves and actually trigger the personalization. So this is going to be has looked at Fiji. And our condition here, and there's these conditions are out of the box, but you can create custom conditions based upon your own business needs. But if you want to say, for example, has visited URL that contains the word Fiji. And so what this is going to do is basically take a look at the visitors, to track the visitors' clickstream through the site. And if they visited a page that contains Fiji, well, what we're going to do is we're going to automatically drop them into the sun lover bucket. And so we activate that rule. And coming back to the page as a front-end user, and let's say I'm a front-end user browsing around, and I come and I spend some time on the Fiji landing page. And now when I go back to the home page, you can see now that the home page has been personalized to me based upon the persona that I've been dropped in. And you can really modify an entire page based upon the persona of the visitor there, and you can have as many personas as you want. Personas, and they can live on, if you're multi-tenant environment, then they can live on different hosts or different sites in dotCMS, et cetera. So it's a really powerful new feature to be able to provide, entirely different pages based upon the persona of your visitors. And in dotCMS 5.2, we've tied the process up so that the personalization can all be done within context of the page. That you can, add personas. You can build rules that trigger those personas based upon custom logic, and we've worked hard to bring that all together in the single editing interface. That doesn't require any coding to achieve personalization results. Now I want to talk about the revamped form builder. dotCMS has had a form builder built in for years, but the existing form builder was deprecated, and this is the upcoming replacement for that functionality. And what the new form builder allows you to do is to really create these custom forms. In essence, they're content types, but they're content collection buckets that you can actually, customize and push through workflows based upon how they're configured. So for example, if we take a look at this Contact Us form, you can see here that we have a number of different fields: first name, last name, email, phone number, and all of this can be dragged and dropped. We also have some other interesting fields. We have a My Interests, which is a tag field, and a headshot, messages. And the headshot, this is actually a file upload. And there's two other important fields for the new form builder. There's the form email, and this is the email that's going to get notified when there's a new form entry, and then there's a callback which tells the form processor what to do after the form successfully submitted. Now, an important new piece in dotCMS 5.2 is you can connect this form entry into a workflow. And so if I take a look at edit this form, you can see here that the workflow, I get to choose a default action that when someone submits this form, I'm going to push this through a particular workflow action, and I can publish it. I can, in this case, I'm going to select form submission, which automatically sends an email and notifies the email on record. But this is a really important capability to be able to collect these form entries and then push them through a workflow, because it allows you to do things like save the form and then sync it to Salesforce, or to collect the data information and then fire a webhook. All of those are available, as an integration point. The workflow action allows you to take the information collected and then do with it and process it and post-process it however you see fit. And so to use this form, this Contact Us form, all I have to do is browse to a particular page on my site. And in this case, I'm going to browse to the Contact Us page, click on Edit, and say I want to drop our contact form onto this page, and it's going to automatically render. Then I'm going to go ahead and save and publish this. And now when I come and visit this page on the front end, you can see here, now my form is automatically rendered. The new forms in dotCMS are built using a JavaScript technology called Stencil.js. And so what Stencil.js allows you to do is build platform-independent web component that can be delivered and used across all different varieties of web and JavaScript platforms. And the new form builder in dotCMS is all API driven. So what that means is we have a JavaScript library that you can use in your single page app, in your Angular app or React app, and point that at a form in dotCMS, and that JavaScript library is automatically going to render the form and the form controls within your single page app in a platform independent way. Okay, so let's go through the process of actually using the form. Looking at this form, it's a little bland. Maybe I want to make some changes, maybe make it a multi-column form. So what I can do is come back to the form builder, and I can drag a column into the form. And now I have first name, last name, phone, email. Maybe I want to move headshot over here, my interests over there. That looks like a nice balanced form. Now coming back and refreshing, you can see I have a nice 2-column form. And the validation's happening both server side and client side. So the submit won't submit until this form is valid from a client perspective. Binary upload is an interesting field here. It can take, you can cut and paste a URL into it, or you can obviously browse for a file to upload, but you can also cut and paste a URL into it that can be automatically uploaded into dotCMS. So if I take an image, for example, copy image address, come back and paste that, you can see here dotCMS has gone out and pulled that down. It's going to automatically drop that into the piece of content. Let me go ahead and get up. So interesting note, the binary field in this form is using the new temp API that's available in dotCMS 5.2. It allows you to upload temp files into dotCMS and then include those as part of a content submittal process. So to continue filling out the form, email, again, this is validation on the client side. The field's not valid. My interest, this is a tag field, so it's going to automatically fill in based upon the tags. And again, keyboard accessible. And I go ahead and I hit submit, and thank you, we've received your form submission. And so what's happened is that form's been ingested by dotCMS and been pushed through the workflow process that was designed for that form. In this case, it's a form workflow process that sends an email to the email on record that includes a link, the information, a link to the associated image, even the image as an attachment, and it has a link back to dotCMS where you can actually see the form entry within dotCMS and manage that form entry. And you can see this is the form data that's on the workflow step, contact submitted, and includes the workflow actions that are available to the user at that workflow step, things like sending an automated reply or syncing to Salesforce. You can build the workflow to do exactly what you need within dotCMS, and the form submittal is a trigger to begin pushing content through that workflow process. And with that, we're excited about the new form capabilities in dotCMS 5.2. Now I want to talk about the improved digital asset management capabilities in dotCMS 5.2. We've heard again and again from our customers and prospects of the need to be able to deliver optimized imagery based upon the visitor's browser's capability. And in 5.2, what we've done now is we've added in native WebP compression. We've also updated the image editor, which is a tool built into the dotCMS itself. But now you can upload imagery and you can compress it as a JPEG. You can see how the compression affects the file size. You can even compress it as WebP. And you can see here that by default, WebP is far and away the smallest file size you can get. It also compresses very well, meaning you can adjust the quality and get this image down to 69K. This is a banner image, and it still looks very, very sharp compared to JPEG here. The most important piece of this is not just being able to deliver WebP, because the thing about a WebP image is that, let me show you, Safari out of the box doesn't support WebP. But what we've done in dotCMS 5.2 is we've given you the ability to select auto. And what auto is going to do is based upon the browser is going to automatically, and based upon the quality you select, is going to automatically deliver the image in the format that your browser can support. So in this case, when I hit this with the auto selected, what I'm getting here, if I save image, what I'm getting here is you can see it's actually coming down as a JPEG. So the compression is going to be not quite as good, but you don't have to adjust your URL, your image URL for banners and whatnot. dotCMS will automatically deliver the optimized image based upon the browser information. We've also added the ability in dotCMS to manage animated GIFs. So if I want to upload, let me show you what that looks like. Upload here, animated a GIF. You can see here there's this cute fat dog. It's a pretty heavy image. It's actually a mini movie. What you can do here is you can actually resize the animated GIF, and you can do things as well. So now you can see it's getting smaller, but you can also say, I want to show, I only want this to be 15 frames long. And you can see here now it's going a little faster. I only want it to be 10 frames long. And you can see here it's getting faster and faster. You can also adjust the loop. So let's say I only want it to loop twice. It'll run through the loop and then it'll stop. So you can see here now my final file size here is 235. Now it can be used on a page where, if you want to just show the keyframes of an animated GIF, you can certainly do that within dotCMS. So another nice improvement in dotCMS 5.2 is the continuing work we're doing with workflows. When content's checked in now in dotCMS 5.2, when content's checked into the content repository and doesn't specify a workflow action to take, dotCMS will automatically assign that content to a workflow step. This happens, when companies are using the Java APIs to check content in, or even uploading files via WebDAV. A lot of times those assets are kind of fall outside workflow step and look like new incoming assets. This will automatically assign them to the first step of the workflow process. And likewise, what you can do now in dotCMS 5.2 is you can automatically, on a content type and on a scheme basis, you can automatically fire workflow actions based on what's happening with the content. So if a piece of content is calling the API to be saved, the workflow action that's mapped to the action saved will automatically be fired. Or if a piece of content is, if you're uploading a piece of content via WebDAV to the save and publish, and you have publish mapped to a workflow action, then that particular workflow action will automatically be fired. So both of those features, the ability to kind of map the native, save, publish, unpublish actions in dotCMS to workflow actions, and the content being automatically placed in workflow really brings workflow really to its proper place in dotCMS, which is, every piece of content needs to be in a workflow and being pushed through a workflow process.
Thanks, Will. That looks great, actually. So let's dive into what we're going to bring for developers in 5.2. There's a number of items around APIs, API reporting, error reporting back into the response, so really allowing for faster troubleshooting when development teams are building those API endpoints and building those seamless integrations. Same goes for the temporary file API. It's a new API that we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. We've also took the opportunity to create a new starter site. The existing starter site has been with us for a number of years, so it was up for renewal. And then obviously we have some ongoing updates in our stack, obviously some security fixes, as well as some smaller improvements. Will, can you share with us how that looks like?
The new starter site that will be shipping with dotCMS 5.2, well, it might not be shipping with dotCMS 5.2, it might come out a little bit later, but the starter site that will be coming out here shortly really is a distillation of best practices. We've been doing POCs with customers for years, and we get asked for similar things again and again, really regardless of what vertical the potential customers is. And the starter site's just a clearer distillation of what we see and hear in the marketplace today. It's a fictitious luxury travel site, has blogs with nested commenting available in it. It has the e-commerce shop. It's just a model e-commerce shop, but product listings, as well as really robust capabilities for personalization. And you can see we're using a lot of the new features that have been built into the dotCMS over the past couple of years. For example, we take a look at a particular banner, you can see the content types are nicely laid out. In this banner layout, for example, you can do things like change the layout that you want to display the banner and publish that and come back, and you can see the banner is going to be updated on the fly. If you take a look at the template and let's look at the banner code, you can add classes to the different divs that surround and the different bootstrap templates that surround the banners to, if you want to stretch it full width or you want to make it extra high, you can append the classes there and that'll be added to the code as well. Another nice thing that we've done with the starter is broken up the different content objects into really buckets and organized them so they can be managed independently. So for example, images are going to be separate from videos, which are separate from content, which are separate from widgets. And additionally, marketing, the marketing tab has vanity URLs, rules, personas, landing pages, forms, All of that separation now you can do from the back end of dotCMS, creating custom content portlets. We just never had that in the old starter site. So the new starter site's just a richer, image-driven experience that really is going to show off the personalization capabilities that are going to be shipping with dotCMS 5.2. With regard to security, I want to talk a little bit about what we've done with users and user permissions in dotCMS 5.2. Prior to dotCMS 5.2, users would live in, really just a single bucket, depending on what, the user roles that they have, whether they're front-end user, back-end user, wasn't necessarily that clear. What we've done in dotCMS 5.2 is really tried to make that clear to administrators of sites and really segment front-end users from the idea of back-end users. And you can see here from the user manager perspective, we've added, the ability to filter by front-end user or back-end user. And you can see clearly on any given user, some of the important roles, whether that user is a CMS administrator, whether that user can actually log into the back-end of dotCMS, whether that user is a front-end or back-end user, right? And you can, on the fly, you can create new users and just assign them really these most basic roles, and based upon that, they're going to have certain accesses in the system. Now we key off these roles, so there are APIs and that are backend specific only, and we're based upon these roles, we're going to be granting access to those APIs or not. Segmenting front-end users from back-end users in dotCMS 5.2 really clarifies security roles and accesses in the system overall. dotCMS 5.2 also has a lot of smaller things specifically targeting developers in the management of dotCMS. So for example, 5.2 has a new default workflow endpoint, and this default workflow endpoint takes 3 different parameters. It takes new, edit, and publish. And when content is pushed to this new workflow endpoint, the new or edit or published, it's going to map those actions to the workflow action that's been mapped in the system. So new content will get pushed through the new workflow, or published content will automatically get pushed through a published workflow. If that workflow action doesn't exist, then it will go ahead and do it in a best efforts basis, try to publish or persist the content based upon what it knows. So it's kind of a heuristic mechanism that decides what to do with the content as best possible. This endpoint also has improved API error reporting and validation reporting. So when a piece of content is being persisted and that content is not valid based upon the rules set on the piece of content, dotCMS will report back that in the API response, and it'll be localized based upon the language that was passed into dotCMS. There's also a temp file API. I talked a little bit about this before. It gives developers the ability to do multi-part uploads into dotCMS as temp files asynchronously from a content check-in. So temp files can be uploaded into dotCMS, and then content can be then persisted that reference those temp files, and those temp files will be associated with the piece of content. That gives developers the ability to create really nice experiences with file uploads, select a number of files, upload those, and then hit, while those are uploading in the background, hit submit, and the content will be submitted with those files associated with it. With regard to improvements in the stack, one thing dotCMS in 5.2 has done is we've removed the dependency on custom scripts in Elasticsearch. And so what this means is that out of the box, you can just set up an out-of-the-box Elasticsearch, kind of a vanilla Elasticsearch cluster, and point dotCMS to it without having to do any sort of custom work or install any custom scripts in that Elasticsearch. And it allows us to also leverage hosted Elasticsearch services when running in the cloud. We've also removed the struts1 jar that ship with dotCMS. We've replaced it with a jar called an open source project called struts1 forever, which has all of any struts security vulnerabilities remediated in the code base. Now dotCMS had already remediated any security vulnerabilities known with struts, but this just really clarifies that situation. We've also fully containerized our continuous integration infrastructure. The testing stack of dotCMS is now running in a Dockerized environment and it's fired on it. Anytime a code commit comes in and gets tested against all 4 databases. So a lot of improvements there just in the entire development process. So we've also made a number of small improvements in this new release. We've done things like optimize the content check-in process. Content that's checked in that runs through 3 or 4 different workflow actions would need to be re-indexed 3 or 4 times. And now that all gets lumped into a single re-index, which makes the content saving much faster. We've added a schedule bundle cleanup job that'll automatically delete older bundles. You can specify how old, and the job will run through and delete those old bundles. I know that it's a much asked for feature. Those can fill up disks pretty fast. We've improved the default content analyzer in Elasticsearch. We were using the whitespace analyzer before for content. Now we're using the standard analyzer, which is a much more normal analyzer and should improve search results from the back-end perspective. I want to end today by talking about what's coming with not 5.2, but the release after 5.2, dotCMS5.next. Work's already begun on the next version, and an important component of the next version is going to be a fully externalized Elasticsearch implementation. And this is an architectural shift. Since we've had Elasticsearch embedded in dotCMS, we've run it in what's called embedded mode. This is not how the Elasticsearch is intended to be run in the modern world, and we're moving to a place where we're shipping a dotCMS container, and we'll also ship Elasticsearch containers that can be spun up independently. So they'll live separately, and Elasticsearch will have to be started and stopped separately outside of dotCMS. And we might provide scripts that do that automatically, but that's another thing. We're also moving to the open distro of Elasticsearch. This is Amazon's distribution of Elasticsearch that's licensed under the LGPL, an open source license. This is an important piece. It's fully Elasticsearch. It's 99% Elasticsearch. They have added some management features, permissioning on top of it, because Elasticsearch, elastic.co has closed sourced those. So this is really the open source version of Elasticsearch plus additional management capabilities. It's what Amazon uses to host their own Elasticsearch services. So it's going to be well supported here future forward. When we'll still be compatible with existing Elasticsearch implementations. We're moving to Dockerized deployments. Talked about this for a while, but what this means, I think, in the code base is it means that we're going to get rid of the support for H2 database of running dotCMS against an H2 database, and instead ship the starter or a demo version of dotCMS as a Docker container. That's an important piece, and just moving forward, dotCMS is intended to be Dockerized. And looking ahead to UI and UX improvements, we're going to continue to be spreading Angular goodness around the back end, focusing shortly here on the revamping the browser and the browser interactivity. We're also going to be focusing on delivering new dashboards and analytics on a site and also on pages and content. We'll also continue to make improvements on components we already have. We're exploring adding a editor.js as a block content editor to the back end of dotCMS and supporting that fully. That would be in addition to the WYSIWYG. We're also talking about a number of different custom fields that we could add to the back end in order to better support things like Markdown or some other custom interactivities. Finally, turning towards intelligence in analytics, really the content personalization at the container level was the first step to being able to provide an A/B testing platform, to be able to define experiments on a container level, perhaps even at a page level, to be able to take a look at the performance of those experiments and have dotCMS intelligently make decisions as to what content's better performing and which content to display more often. So really native A/B testing is a function of having powerful analytics. And so what we're thinking for analytics is a separate project. Really, it's a separate component to dotCMS that would perform separately from dotCMS, that dotCMS would communicate with in order to provide functionality, analytic type functionality, including powering dashboards, being able to power A/B testing, being able to provide visitor scoring, and being able to make intelligent content decisions on the fly based upon the data that's been captured. And so that concludes the overview of what's coming in dotCMS next and this webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for your time and for sticking with this. We look forward to delivering dotCMS 5.2 and continuing to work and improve the product with your guys' guidance and help. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much for taking us through dotCMS 5.2 and all the new features and functionality that we can look forward to. I'd like to get started now with our Q&A. So Stefan, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, Alex, thanks for that, and thanks, Will, for giving that overview of the 5.2 release. I'm pretty excited about what I've seen so far, so I'm sure our customers and partners will share that sentiment. But let's take some time for some questions from the audience, if any. Anyone, any questions, please feel free to share them in the question panel. But there's one thing that we didn't discuss in the webinar is when are we planning to release 5.2, Will? Can you share some light on that?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Stefan. You know, we're aiming for a late September release for 5.2, though that might bleed into October depending on where we get with the buttoning up of some of the features before we ship. But right now, currently, we're aiming for a late September launch for 5.2. But like I said, that might slip a week or two. But you know, we're not going to slip beyond that.
Yeah, great. We got some questions coming in. So, does the form builder utilize responsive design? Question.
The form builder utilizes web components and is really just a web component itself that can be placed into a responsive design. So you can use the form builder in single page apps. You can use the forms in progressive web apps, or in any third-party app. Really, it's forms as a service. So the components have been designed really for maximum accessibility. You have control over how to style them, how you want them to display. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the overall answer is yes, absolutely. It'll support responsive design.
Cool, great. Well, sticking to the form, question, can I assume that the web form to workflow integration can be configured in a way that specific workflow processes can be triggered by choices made in the form? So if there is a multiple choice question, one question can alter person one, while different choice might alert person two on the back end.
Oh, that's interesting. Not in this first iteration. You could make that decision, though, in your workflow and with a custom workflow action to say, okay, you can do post-processing of the form and say, okay, this form is a suggestion, or this form is a bug report, or this form is a support request. And I mean, you could have the workflow action based upon that information, manage the form through a workflow process that could be different for each of those.
Cool. Yeah, and in addition to that, you could combine the new personalization capabilities with forms as well, right? So you can expose different forms to different personas, and then also have a different workflow tied into that. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Another question. Any features specific to intranets and internal audiences on the product roadmap?
Yeah, I really think the user, and we kind of flew through it in the webinar, but the user segmentation that defines the difference between front end and back end users is going to be really important to customers that use, that use both OAuth or LDAP or any type of external authentication for, front end and back end users. I think it really is going to clarify what a user is and what the user's capabilities are going to be able to do when they're visiting a dotCMS site. based upon those front end and back end users. And again, I don't know if you missed it, but that's going to be a really nice new thing that's been a long time coming in the system.
Great. Another one. Do you guys work with analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester? And how do they respond to your product roadmap? You want to talk to that, Will? I mean,
you want to take that, Stefan?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we do. So we work closely with Gartner as well as talking to Forrester. And so prior to every public briefing on a release and our near-term and long-term vision and product roadmap, we have a one-on-one briefing with these analyst firms. They respond really well. They appreciate our vision. That definitely sets us apart from the competition, as well as our roadmap and our ability to execute on that roadmap. And they indicate that we're spot on with regards to trends and what the market is actually asking for. So, yeah, to answer that question.
Great.
Another question. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is a big buzz at the moment. Do you see AI, machine learning, make it its entrance into dotCMS, and how?
Well, it absolutely will make its entrance into dotCMS, and I think we have extension points now that can take advantage of cloud-based machine learning products. You know, things like OCR recognition, or image tagging, or machine translations. All of those different pieces right now can be injected through a dotCMS workflow, and to add more context to content coming into dotCMS. But from internally, from a content delivery standpoint, really machine learning is going to come after analytics. So we need analytic data to be able to even model what we want to model with machine learning, to be able to provide, optimized content delivery based upon different parameters. So the analytics component will come first, and then, post that, the machine learning will be layered in, at least at the content delivery standpoint. That's not at the content editing or the natural language processing component there, but that's more at the content delivery level.
Yeah, that's probably going to make its way in version 6, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and I know that we're articulating our vision around what we call experience automation. So, yeah, we're definitely working on this and see how we can leverage those technologies within dotCMS. So, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. All right, more questions. A lot of our current problems seems to be due to the fact that folders are a very old mechanism in dotCMS and tags are simple text. Will we be seeing updates to either folders and or tags in the future? In particular, will they be content at any point? This is from Dennis.
I see. That is, well, the folders is in particular is important in dotCMS. Where I'd like to get, and this isn't on a roadmap, but really what I see folders being is really not having business logic in the system except for to be paths to hang permissions off of. Right now, folders in the system are, everything is got to exist on a host and a folder, and the folder doesn't exist, or the ID is different than some of the other, than the name in different environments, and that could cause issues. But really, that from a data perspective, content knows where they live even without the folder ID. They know the paths, and based upon that, we can generate the list of folders that are in the system. So we are looking at changing folders. There's no ETA on that, but really removing the constraint that things have to live in a folder. Instead, they find their own folders, and based upon that, we'll show what folders would be there. And there wouldn't be any, from a user perspective, there wouldn't be any real difference there, except for the fact that there wouldn't be that constraint, which does cause problems across different environments. Tags are also important in the system. Their importance is growing. I mean, they're growing with personas. I think the new starter site, one thing that we're working hard on doing is tagging every piece of content. The idea of being able to tag content in bulk from the content search screen, or untagged content in bulk, is an important component as well. And I think that that's another piece. There's no plans to make that content at this point, but it's an interesting concept. I have to think about that.
Yeah, I think AI machine learning can play a role in tagging of content, but that's a personal opinion, so
Totally agree. Yep.
All right, let's take the final question. Is it safe to say that with 5.2 it is safe to use the Docker containers provided by dotCMS in a production environment?
Yeah, it is. We use them ourselves in a production environment. One thing that's coming in 5.2, and this is thanks to the enterprise services team, is the 5.2 containers can run in OpenShift or different orchestrator environments, and don't necessarily have to be run as root, which the earlier containers did have to be run as. But they absolutely can be. And dotCMS, a majority of our on-prem customers now are running dotCMS and Docker of some sort through orchestrators, and they're using our images or custom images that they're building themselves based on our images.
Great. You mentioned OpenShift. Are there any restrictions with regards to other orchestrators customers can use?
Always, your mileage will vary depending on, they each have their different nuances. Okay. We just have a number of customers that are specifically looking at running on OpenShift, and so that was something that we targeted. But the work we did there is important regardless of what orchestrator you're running on.
Great, thanks. With that, Will, I'd like to thank you for today's webinar. Alex, thank you as well, and everybody who chimed in. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to talk to you soon. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.